This episode of Truth Table is brought to you by our NAACP Image Award nominated book, Truth Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation. Get it where all books are sold.
Sisters, how y'all feel? Brothers, y'all all right? If this is your first time at Truth Table, welcome to the table. And if you've been sitting at the table with us all these years, we are so grateful that you have been listening to us through these years, and we are inviting you to partner with us and support our work at patreon.com/truthstable. Now pull up a chair and have a seat at the table with us. Hey y'all, welcome to Truth Table, Midwives and Culture for Grace and Truth. I'm Ekemini. This table is built by Black women and for Black women. So welcome to the table, sisters. All right, y'all, you know we are in our Underground Railroad 2.0 series still, okay? Because we still need to get to freedom land, okay? God is taking us somewhere. This episode is just myself. Christina could not make it for this recording, but I am not alone because I am joined by my dear sister, Minister JaNaé Bates Imari. Welcome to the table, Minister JaNaé. How are you?
I am blessed and highly favored, even in the midst of it all. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I mean, even better now that I'm seeing you, my sister comrade. But you know what? Before we get into our convo, because you already know how we do.
Yeah. Let
me go ahead and tell the sisters at the table and the brothers in the Sunday room section a little bit about you. All right. Minister JaNaé Bates Imari is the co-executive director for Faith in Minnesota and ISAIAH, a multiracial, multi-faith, statewide vehicles for people and communities of faith, minority-owned businesses, childcare centers, manufactured home parks, and farming communities. Both ISAIAH and Faith in Minnesota are dedicated to building a multiracial democracy by moving collectively and powerfully for racial and economic equity in the state of Minnesota. JaNaé and her organizations have most recently been recognized for the frontline organizing work during Operation Metro Surge and the Day of Truth and Freedom in the Twin Cities. JaNaé is the lead organizer and founder of the Black Clergy Power Table and the statewide Black Church Power Project. JaNaé specializes in integrating grassroots community organizing and narrative strategy in both Minnesota and across the U.S. JaNaé is a womanist theologian and Fulbright scholar. She has over 2 decades of experience in ministry, social justice, and communications. She additionally serves as an auxiliary minister at Camphor, Memorial United Methodist Church in St. Paul's historic Rondo neighborhood. Welcome to the table, Minister JaNaé Bates. Oh, sis, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I love Truth Table.
Oh, we love you, sis. We love you. You know what? Before we even get into your faith story, because we always want to know about how you came to faith and how you're doing what you're doing, how the Lord has orchestrated your life. But I thought it'd be appropriate for us to talk about our origin story. You and I, our origin story.
Yeah.
So, and fill in any blanks, but y'all, it was the end of July 2025. Yeah. And I had the opportunity to go on, right? It's a whole lot of life has happened since then.
A lot of life has happened since then, but yeah.
I heard that. A lot of life has happened since then. But July 2025, I got this opportunity to go to this retreat called Flourish Retreat, organized by our dear friend and sister Holman. And it's a powerful, awesome retreat. We went to Riviera Maya, Mexico. I went with just my friend, 2 of my friends, and I didn't know anybody else, y'all. I didn't know anybody else, but I've never met a stranger, so I knew that I would make some friends.
Believe that.
Right? I ain't never met a stranger. I was like, all right, it's all good. So I had the time of my life at that retreat. Me and JaNaé were just line dancing, eating some delicious food, lounging. And you know what was so beautiful about this retreat? We did not talk about work. We didn't really we didn't talk about what we do. I didn't talk about really my ministry. I didn't really know what you did either, to be honest. Yeah. And it wasn't until after we got back from the retreat that you and we connected. I think we had exchanged numbers there at the retreat, and then we came back And we were like, okay, let's get on a FaceTime. I think it was a
Yeah.
FaceTime and just connect and talk. And in that conversation, you looked at the book behind me and you were like,
Yes,
I love
exactly.
that. Sorry, y'all. For our audio listeners, I'm sorry. I'm pointing at the Truth Table book behind me. And she's like, wait a minute. Wait, I love that book. And I was like, oh, I'm a co-author. Right? Is that right? Am I
That is
lying?
right. It is right. You ain't lying. I was like, oh my gosh, I had not connected the dots at all. At
So
all.
it was just like it was like, listen, y'all, people on the front lines, we need times of refreshing. We need times to just unplug and
Yeah.
just be, right? And so I thought it was just so awesome the way the Lord just orchestrated that we
Amen.
didn't really find out about each other and what we did until after, and then discovered, oh, we sister comrades. All right. And so,
Amen. Amen. Yeah. Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. And the Flourish Retreat is a good space for that because there's so many dynamic Black women who are doing so many dynamic things in their lives. And
Yes.
you do get all of these like beautiful connections.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. No, well, thank you for indulging me in our
Oh,
origin story.
yes. Yes, yes.
Oh my goodness. So Minister JaNaé Bates Imari, take us from the top.
Whew.
Tell us about your origin story, about where you're from, born and raised, how you came to faith, and
Mm,
how did your faith guide you and bring you to this point to be this
mm.
organizer extraordinaire in Minneapolis. Talk to us, my sister.
Oh my. We don't have that much time. But I mean, so I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
So Ohioan at heart.
That's why she knew all the
Um,
line dances, y'all. That's why she knew all that at the
Listen,
retreat.
let's get it. Yeah, so I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, born and raised, and grew up in a household with a gospel singing mama and a preacher daddy.
Mm,
And so was one of those PKs that was in church every day, every
I
day.
believe it.
And so really, frankly, growing up within the church, I actually didn't come to my own
Mhm.
like conviction and commitment to it until I was 16. And it
Mm,
was actually at a time where I was in a bunch of emotional, spiritual turmoil,
mm,
um, and had witnessed literal miracles in my life, like my brother who was epileptic. Um,
wow.
and my dad went on a 40-day fast for him, literally had not had a seizure since, still hasn't had a seizure since.
Ooh,
And so had witnessed these miracles. So I believed in God, but I still hadn't connected, like, who is this Christ for JaNaé?
yeah.
And so while I was going through some real bouts of depression,
Mm,
was clinically depressed and had some suicidal ideation
mm,
as a young person, I literally was in a church service. It was a revival service, and I heard God's audible voice
wow.
telling me to stand up and to move. And I'm like, what? Like, this is crazy. I felt like a crazy person. But I took off running in the church, and I just know I was running and crying and praising God as if it was when nobody else in that church
Amazing.
packed with people. And from that point moving forward, certainly it has not been perfect, but there has been a difference that has just continued to grow with me and deepen me in Christ. And so,
Wow.
there's all kinds of
Yeah,
touch
of
points
course.
throughout my life. And this was also a time where I had met my husband,
Wow.
who my now husband,
Yeah.
who, we have a very long, winding road.
Hmm.
Uh, Certainly, that could be a whole other podcast for another
Right.
day. But
Right.
he's been a huge point of like showing me the grace of God and God's
Mm,
redemptive, restorative
mhm,
power. He
mhm.
is someone who was incarcerated for 20 years and
Wow.
is out now living a redeemed life, and largely because of the power of forgiveness. And so there's just like ways in which God has continually shown his hand in very like concrete ways that has been so undeniable that I'm like, everybody needs this. And not in the beat you over the head with the Bible like way, but a truly like beautiful evangelical way that is about the gospel and in a world that is so broken and in so need of redemption and radical love. And so my call to social justice became so apparent as I moved through my late teenage and early 20s years. Yeah.
Wow. That is really powerful testimony of the ways in which God's hand has always been on you. I've
Amen.
called you, you are mine, right?
Amen.
And God
Amen.
has proven that to you over and over, shown you that over and
Amen.
over. It's just like I can't doubt it. I know too much about him. You can't make me doubt him
Oh
because
yeah. Oh
you've
yeah, yeah,
seen
yeah.
much. You've heard
Yes.
God's voice.
Yes.
I would imagine probably not the only time, but you heard God's voice.
Amen.
It's
Amen.
powerful. It's powerful. Can you talk about what it means to follow after God's call on your life? Like, how did Minister JaNaé Bates, or
Mm.
maybe JaNaé Bates at this point,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
for sure. Yeah. It was,
move
yeah, the
in?
Mari was not a twinkle yet.
Yeah, right. At this point, maybe JaNaé Bates, who heard the call, like, and took off running in church, go from Cleveland, Ohio, to organizing, to being the co-executive director at ISAIAH and Faith in Minneapolis. Like, what is that trajectory, and what does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. So I always had this like deep um commitment towards storytelling. And it was because I had always seen there is something really
Mm,
powerful in storytelling
that's
and frankly in people being able to tell their stories. I briefly talked about my husband and the way
yes.
in which, like, even watching him grow up, the way in which other people told his story for him and how harmful that can be,
Mm,
because especially if it's grounded in what their agenda is as opposed to what's actually who he is and who he can be. And I have always clinged to the African proverb that until the lion has their own historian, the hunter will always be the hero. And so that led me into journalism. And so I really wanted to do really powerful storytelling of Black folks, and frankly, like in Black Christian folks.
mm,
Um, because I found that, again, way too often our stories get told for us, that isn't fully connected to the breadth and depth of what it is and what it
mhm,
can be. And so I went to Wilberforce University.
mhm,
Shout out to my HBCUs, the first and the finest. And there I got very politicized from a Black
yes.
Christian woman standpoint. And like being a journalism major and doing more of this storytelling and understanding the way in which stories shape people's lives, shape
Yes.
people's politics, shape our understanding. And so I worked as a journalist for the Call and Post newspaper, one of the oldest Black newspapers in the country, that's based in Ohio. And I got to do a bunch of amazing and dope things. Like one of my claim to fames was I got to talk to the then Senator Obama,
Oh,
and to
wow.
his
That's
wife
awesome.
Michelle Obama, and they were like my best interviews ever. Not because
That
I
is
did great,
awesome.
but I just like sat there fangirling the whole time.
That is
Um,
so awesome. That is awesome.
but I also recognized there were some limitations to the journalism world, in terms of having the kind of impact that I wanted to, in the political realm,
Yeah.
and um, and in the faith realm. So I ended up, after working for the newspaper for a while, I worked for a newswire, for a little bit of time, and then I was blessed to get a Fulbright, to go and do deeper theological studies. And so I
Amazing.
moved to Scotland and lived in Scotland for a few years studying theology. And at my time, and during my time there, I lived in what's called a LARSH community. So these intentional communities of able and differently able people who live and work together based on this like Christian ethos of reciprocated love, and completely blew open the box that I had put God in, the way in which I understood capitalism, the way in which I understood how the political realm operates on regular Joe Schmoes and the marginalized, and so became again like a fire lit up under me from a politicized point. Also, while I was writing my master's thesis and working and living in L'Arche in Scotland, Ferguson was unfolding in the US. And so I'm like spending all night up watching what's happening in the streets while I'm also writing about womanism and lamentation and what does it mean to lament for such a time as this. So came back to the US on fire and ready to do really good God's work, but also needed a paycheck. And
I love it. Sister's got to eat. All right.
Sister had to
Sister
eat.
needs a roof over her head.
Man. So I had initially went back to the newswire, but felt like just like a cog in the machine. And got licensed as a minister and particularly a minister of social justice with my church in Cleveland at the time. And a lot of my work was being with people after their loved ones were killed by police officers. And in Ohio and Cleveland, and this is like 2015, there were over 100 murder by police cases and 0 police convictions, and only 2 officers during that time actually even saw a courtroom. But again, no convictions. And so it was a depleting experience, spiritually, emotionally, physically. And so in that space of feeling like depleted and crying out to God, and frankly, like just like desperation, I just Googled communications and theology and prayed that some maybe mega church was going to need communications capacity, and then I was going to infiltrate it with social justice.
Sometimes when the saints, you got to sneak it in there.
You got to sneak it in, give them, hide the veggies. And by the grace of God, ISAIAH came up. And ISAIAH, they needed a communications director. I looked them up. I was like, wait, these are Statey people doing justice work. They're talking about really breaking chains out here and doing real political work that's grounded in strategy. These seem like my people. So I packed my bags up sight unseen and moved my tail to Minnesota.
That's right.
Asking the question like, oh, do they have Black people here? And yes, surely enough, we got a few. And certainly, my life here has been affirmed every day that God sent me here to this place. It is a really fertile place for organizing, and for the kind of organizing that I do, that really is about how are we being in real relationship with regular folks, not activists, frankly. No shade to the activists out there in the world, but we actually need regular people who are just like regular moms and dads trying to make it. The uncle who just is trying to, pay his bills, the families who are taking care of each other, the clergy who is like, I'm showing up every Sunday and I'm seeing my church depleting, but I don't know what to do. Like it's just regular people. How are we getting them activated in their own agency, taking responsibility for the world around us, connecting with one another, and with strategy and with Christ and with the good grace and rationale and logic that God gave us, really building a better world. And so I get to do that, and I get to do it shaping narratives. And so I was there as the communications director for 7 years. And in the last 2.5 years now, I have been the co-executive director. So
amazing. And you are doing an amazing, phenomenal job, sis.
God bless you.
Woo, you are. Because my goodness, you have been on the front lines. We're going to get into it. We are going to get into it. But before we do, I am curious about I am curious about how your faith in Jesus, how this gospel, this powerful
Mm.
gospel of ours, of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, I say his location because
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
lot of counterfeits out there. Okay, there's a lot of
Oh yeah.
people,
Yeah,
there
yeah,
are a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
people
For sure.
perpetrating the fraud on our
For
faith,
sure.
and there's power in reclamation,
Amen.
in correcting the truth
Amen.
of this Eastern faith that we have come, to know, being in the
Yeah.
farther outer parts, of the faith. That's
Yeah.
us in the West.
Yeah,
Hello,
yeah, yeah,
people.
yeah, 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 yeah.
um,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I am curious about how your faith, because there are some Christians, we talked about hiding veggies earlier, that
Mhm.
are like, oh, we're supposed to just put up and shut up. There are some people
Mhm.
that really believe that, right? Because they have
Mhm.
a misinterpretation, I would argue, of Romans, or there are those who are fueled by the gospel and say, oh, no,
Mm.
no, we're supposed to run out there, or
Yeah.
we're supposed to put our bodies on the line for the sake of our neighbor and because of
Yeah.
our love for God. Can you talk about how your faith fuels your own position, and space in the movement?
Yeah.
And just an organizing period, but currently right now, you're in the middle of it. You're in the fire, sister.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the realities to me is, and it's so, it comes off so clear to me, and probably to you and many other Christians, that our call is to love thy neighbor, right? And that us loving God and loving our neighbor is what fulfills the law, like
Yeah.
literally.
Yes.
And yet we see in this world that there are there are people, and not just any people, there are people under a banner of white Christian nationalism that are doing
That's
the exact opposite.
that's right.
So when we're told that we're supposed to feed the hungry, they're out here cutting SNAP program.
Come on.
When we're told that we're supposed to heal the sick, they're taking people's health care and their Medicaid and their Medicare. When
That's
we're
right.
told that we're supposed to welcome the stranger, they out here kicking people out, deporting them, literally kidnapping folks from their
Mhm,
homes and their
mhm,
schools and their
mhm,
workplaces and trying to build a wall.
mhm,
When we're
mhm.
told that we're supposed to care for the poor and the oppressed and set the captives free, they are doing the exact opposite and building policies and laws and breaking laws to do
That's
the
right.
exact opposite. And so I find that it is incredibly important at this time that people who profess Jesus Christ, the Christ of Nazareth, the Christ that said that I have come to set the captives free, that I have come to that we have life and life more abundant, stand on that. And
That's right.
frankly, we have a lot of dynamic and wonderful progressive people and institutions in the world who are doing good work. And when they do it fully and completely in secularism, which I'm no shade to that because they're
Mhm,
going
mhm.
out and getting people that I can't go get,
Yeah.
they are also woefully ill equipped to combat the level of white Christian nationalism that we're up against.
Oh, absolutely.
And if Christians who know better don't do better, then we
Mm,
all in trouble. And
mm.
so it is incredibly important that in these times we are literally putting on the full armor of Christ and being out there. And
Mm.
for many of us, that looks like actually physically having our bodies out in the streets. But it also means like literally having our hearts and our minds and our spirits ready for what it is that God calls us to do.
Mhm.
One of my favorite ministers out in the world, the Reverend Dr. Tracy Blackman, she has said that God
Mhm.
doesn't call us to be extraordinary, He calls us to be available. And
Yes.
so if we are not making ourselves available to what it is that Christ called, because we already decided, well, I'm going to do this, or God surely doesn't want me to have to, this is my private faith. And frankly, in a time like this, it is a necessity to have a public faith.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah, no, we have, well, our public faith, is a reflection of our private faith, right?
Amen.
We're
Amen.
not robots. We can't live these bifurcated lives. And
No.
the climate is such that this faith that we profess is is being tested,
Amen.
and if it hasn't darkened your doorstep yet, keep living, and
Amen.
I'm not, it doesn't bring me joy to say that. It's just And I don't think you need to be a prophet to see
Yeah.
that before things
Yeah.
get better. Unfortunately, it looks like things are going to get worse before we can get to that other side. And so we
Absolutely.
always we got to be ready um, um, uh, to do what it is that God has called us to do in the moment that God has called us to do it. So with that, let's take a quick commercial break. And then when we
All
come
right.
back, we're going to get into all of the things, girl, because yeah, we're gonna get
Woo.
into all the things that you have been
Let's get
doing there
in
in
it.
Minnesota. So y'all don't go nowhere. Keep it locked. We'll be right back.
Our NAACP Image Award nominated book, Truth Table: Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation, is making waves and shifting culture. I closed this book feeling like I had just partaken in a multi-course meal, filled with grace and the courage to carry on. And I believe you'll finish this book feeling the same way. Morgan Harper Nichols, artist and poet. Buy Truth Table: Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation at our website or wherever books are sold.
All right, and we are back at the table with my sister comrade, Minister JaNaé Bates Imari. All right, so sis, we got to get into what is happening there at Minnesota
Yeah.
now, or in Minnesota. Sorry,
Yeah.
I remember because I want to take it back a little bit. It's been already a long
Uh-huh.
year, has it not? I'm sure much longer for you.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I just remember after our retreat, and you were kind of in the throes of wedding planning, and you were going,
Oh, yes.
okay, for your bridal shower,
Yeah.
it was, a celebratory time. And
Yeah.
I remember seeing the pictures on Facebook, looking so beautiful, you and your hubby, and it was just beautiful. And then it seemed like right when the new year hit,
Yeah.
from what I can tell from my vantage point, not being a Minnesotan, from the outside looking in, Operation Surge seemed to descend,
Yeah.
on infiltrate Minnesota. I believe over 3,000 ICE officers and occupied,
Yeah.
brought Minnesota under its occupation. And I think that's the right language
That is.
to use for what has occurred and still ongoing
Yeah.
in some ways, that you are still are dealing with. Talk to me about that. Does that seem like a fair assessment from the outside? Looking in, and tell us about from your vantage
Yeah.
how things
Yes.
are
Yeah.
there.
So we yes, that is a fair assessment. So in organizing, you learn how to read the political meteorology of
That's
what's going on, right? And so we knew in 2025 that we needed to build real infrastructure for whatever was coming.
yes,
So we built something actually in our organization. We built something called Lighthouse, which is hundreds of clergy in Minnesota who, and it's clergy. Yes, it's Christian clergy, but we also have Muslim imams
wonderful.
and
Yes,
Jewish rabbis who all came together and built the infrastructure to have a rapid response network. We didn't know what we were building it for. We just knew we
wow,
needed it.
wow,
And then our organization, we organize churches and mosques, but we also organize manufactured home parks and farm families and like over 600 childcare centers across the state. So
yes.
there's a lot of us, and we built we each in our each constituency, we built agendas about what we
Mhm.
wanted, like what we were for. We can't just talk
Yes,
about all the things we're going to block and what we're against. And so people, we had gotten into the mode of winning things in this state. In 2023 alone, we won paid family medical leave statewide and 100%
yes,
clean energy and voting rights restoration, formerly incarcerated people, and free school meals in all of our in our K through 12. Like we have been winning things through
Mhm.
organizing, and so we were like, okay, what's the next big gets that we're going to go get? And so we started to build this agenda, and we also knew we can't win an agenda if we operate as if we're not up against an authoritarian regime.
That's
And
right.
so we all came together in December. So you're right. December, I had my wedding on December 7th. And then on December 13th, 5,000 of our leaders gathered in the Minneapolis Convention Center and had a full day training about how we were going to go and when this agenda we ratified, and how we were going to have to confront an authoritarian regime to get it.
Wow.
And so in that full day training, it was really building infrastructure. It was talking about how we were going to launch this giant Palm Sunday path, which I think I had talked to you about back in the day. We were like, we're gonna do this giant Palm Sunday path and have Palm Sunday events happen all over the country.
Yes, you did.
And so we talked about, like, we didn't just talk about it, like we really started to build out, like, who are the people that need to be included? How are we building out real infrastructure? What are the internal things, the internal structures that need to happen for a whole set of things? And frankly, like I said, we thought we were building it, to ready ourselves for Palm Sunday or like Super Eid or some big thing that would happen during this election season. We had no idea that in 25 days we were going to have to implement it.
My goodness.
And so, yes, we knew that there were like verbal attacks against the Somali community here in Minnesota, where we do have a large Somali population, the largest outside of Somalia. We had known the ways in which the president had been really starting to escalate verbal attacks on immigrants and using fraud narratives in particular to try to validate the kind of spectacle of cruelty we were about to witness. And so when we had initially hundreds of ICE agents deployed in the cities, with all of our different infrastructures in the city started to like build up to be able to create protections. We had parent patrols, that were showing up at the schools to watch the kids, and daddy daycares. Like it's wild to think that like you have to create the infrastructure to like watch your kids' daycare while your kids are at daycare, where they should actually be able to safely be there while you can go to work. And so people were really taking, but creating like meal drop-offs and mutual aid supports, and all these things were happening like through churches, through families all over the state. And then another 1,000 came, and then the murder of Renee Good happens. And literally the same day that Renee Good was murdered, they pepper sprayed an elementary school. They beat up on a bunch of folks in the cities. They literally we've had multiple events where like women in their cars had their windows broken. They were dragged out of their cars by ICE agents while their baby screamed in the back seat, and they left them. Like this became just a regular occurrence every single day. And they were doing this to both undocumented and documented people. Like citizens were having their doors broken down. And our law enforcement here, police officers, sheriffs, they were like, well, we can't do anything. Not because they didn't necessarily have political will, but they were like, we are literally outnumbered. We got to the point, there are 3,500 of them. The Minneapolis Police Department has less than 200 officers. It was like, they were kind of looking at us like, what do you want us to do? And the people felt abandoned. And while we felt abandoned, we also felt empowered. It was like, we are going to have to do what we got to do to save ourselves. We learned a lot after the murder of George Floyd and the uprising that took place here. We learned a lot in literally the murder of our own. Jesus. I'm sorry. It's just been a year anniversary of the murder of Melissa Hortman, our Speaker of the House, and her husband, Mark, who was murdered by a white Christian nationalist. And there are just ways in which we have learned together. How do we collectively respond, even in the midst of trauma, in the midst of fear, in the midst of anger, that tells a story about what's possible? And so in the murder of Renee Good, we knew that we had to organize together to tell a different story. We had to implement the infrastructure we built and leverage the relationships that we've had over many years of fighting for and winning things. And so we did the literally the very first scaled vigil that happened that very early that next morning at the place where Renee Good was killed. And it was led by clergy from this rapid response network from Lighthouse. Had hundreds of clergy show up together. And they started to create spaces everywhere where that could happen regularly and daily, where we could start to hold. It wasn't about controlling people's anger or where their conditions were, but actually starting to set and create discipline and rigor on how we're going to act and interact together, knowing that we got a president who is waiting, hoping
Yes.
that we do something to try to enact the Insurrection Act. And so we knew it would not be helpful for us to have martial law. And frankly, we needed to tell a story about the fact that, like, Renee was out here, as her wife said, we had whistles and they had guns. How are we showing the juxtaposition of us out here doing what we got to do to take care of our neighbors, organizing together, showing up together, peacefully protesting, even taking it as far as having some civil disobedience, but that is still grounded in nonviolence. While they are consistently hitting us with violent attacks, they're consistently hitting us with pepper spray, rubber bullets, literal real bullets. Like, we have to show what does it mean right now for hundreds of thousands of Minnesotans to show up together. And so we as the clergy, so I want to be real clear, the beauty of January 23rd, the Day of Truth and Freedom, which was also called the Day of Fasting and Prayer, was built out of deep relationships with labor unions and clergy and faith leaders. And I really try to make that clear everywhere I go, because sometimes we think that, like, a mass economic blackout happens either just by labor or some community groups, and that faith leaders are there as rent-a-collars. That we show up to do the prayer before and the prayer after. But it is actually people being clear about their moral authority and about their strategic prowess. The notion of being as gentle as dove but wise as serpent is also a call of ours. And so them being in strategic planning, actually doing the work, the groundwork to activate literally hundreds of thousands of people, making it possible to have the infrastructure for us to have people take off of school, out of work, and refuse to shop on a single day together. And for 100,000 people to say, I'm also going to fast. It required a lot of work. We did that in 10 days. I don't recommend such a short time frame, but
you saw me sending you texts like, I'm praying for you. Like just, y'all been organizing, like, go gadget. Y'all working it out. Rapid response organizing. I'm like, oh my goodness.
It's like creating, because it's creating captains who are literally making sure that they're taking over particular regions to talk to small businesses, to ask that they close their business so that their employees can participate in the day. It's like making sure that, like, labor unions have the kind of political cover that they need and legal cover to be able to do legal strikes. It's making sure that churches and mosques and synagogues create the conditions and the space for people to be able to come there and to pray, or to get some hot chocolate or some, or some coffee, because we also had mass actions where folks were in the streets
and warming centers.
And warming centers.
It was in the winter.
It was not just the winter, sis. It was literally on record the coldest day of the year.
That's right.
So we hit, in some parts of the state, we hit negative 53 degrees. So it was below freezing. It was horrifically cold. And so, but even in the midst of that, to have 100,000 people pour into the street, we had 100 clergy and 3,000 people show up at the Minneapolis St. Paul airport, where clergy kneeled and prayed for our neighbors who have been stolen, for our 3,000 neighbors who have been taken just from January 1 through February, had been taken and deported, or had been taken and put into horrific conditions in detention centers across the country. And they risked arrest and were arrested while being there in prayer. And so there were clergy who also showed up at US Bank and did a sit-in at the US Bank headquarters in downtown Minneapolis, and said, we refuse to leave until we get to meet with the CEO of this bank, who has made the decision to be in a contract with ICE. Like, there's just, like, the ways in which folks got really clear about the fact that corporations need to take responsibility for what is happening in their own state, especially ones that call Minnesota their headquarters and their home. But it's also that we get to take responsibility, that we can't, just because our police said that they're going to abandon us, just because lawmakers said we can't do anything about this, we said, oh, we can, and we're going to show up, and we're going to keep showing up for our neighbors. And so we've had to continue to do that. Even now, we have to keep showing up.
Oh, yes. Oh my goodness. Thank you for breaking down exactly what was happening there on the ground with Operation Metro Surge, the
Yeah.
day of truth, and freedom, the
Yeah.
fasting, movement, which some people are calling the economic boycott, which is that was one of the very important byproducts of that. And then, of course, the unfortunate and just horrific murder of Renee, Nicole Good, and Alex
And that's
Pretty,
who was literally murdered the day after the day of truth and freedom. He was murdered that morning.
So let me ask you this. How are you all as organizers and also as the Minnesotans that are a part of the actions, how are you all caring for your minds and your spirit in the midst of this, because it's just part of this, the strategy is chaos, right?
Yeah.
It is meant to hit you back to back to back to back, so you can't catch your breath, or so they can make you tired, they can make you exhausted, make you give up, but how are you all maintaining your resilience, keeping your mind as best as you can and your spirit steady in the midst of such an onslaught of oppression? I mean, let's just call it what it is. I mean, talking about from George Floyd to now with Alex Pretty and Renee Nicole Good, what's the aftermath of that? What is that? What are you all holding?
What's
holding you? Let me say that. I mean,
the Lord
I know what's holding you. I know who's holding you.
But I really always appreciate this question, and I think sometimes folks are like asking, like, what's like the self-care practices and the main thing that I think about, especially when it comes to self-care, especially in times like this where we are dealing with an onslaught of oppression and trauma back to back to back, and there is an intentionality about cruelty and chaos, is having real infrastructure, a real plan, is the most grounding thing in the world, honestly. Like, the fact that I get to do this work and it is so grounded in purpose, I don't feel like I'm like, okay, we got to start from scratch every time something else happens. It's okay. We are revving up. We're a well-oiled machine at this point. We know how to deal with this. We have faced this before. It looked a little different than before, but it's not that much different, right? We know that here's a set of things that they're going to expect from us, and we know how we're going to respond. We know here's the way in which we're going to have to project to the world. This is actually how you're supposed to act and behave when they're trying to goad you into acting some other kind of way. And so there's a set of practices that we have that actually get to be both a defense and offense that creates the conditions for you to be able to not feel like you're constantly running raggedy. Right? That you're not like always like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Now that does require, and this is the beauty of organizing, we talk about power a lot. Power being organized people and organized money. When you're actively building power, that is your compass. And because that's a compass, then it also gives you a little bit of relief that you actually don't have to respond to everything. That like all the things that happen is not all within JaNae's wheelhouse to respond to. Like, it'd be nice to go after that, but that's not where we are right now. That's not our lane. Here's a set of things that we need to do in order for regular people to be able to build power in this moment. And there's a lot of opportunities, that can sometimes they look really great, but it's like, look, we know our lane. Here's the things we need to do for right now to ready our people for what's next. In the same way that you're naming, like, we probably need to ready ourselves for another big economic blackout.
Yeah.
And that should probably be more than just Minnesota, right? So we've actually been
Just
working,
maybe.
so we've been, but like, we recognize
Yeah,
we do have some of we've
absolutely.
built some of the memory muscle to be able to
Mhm.
do those kinds of things.
Yeah,
And so our clergy now are planting those seeds in other states to be able
love
to
that.
build their own infrastructure. Um, so, look out, folks, for democracy revivals
Come
that
on.
will be happening in October of this year, that are looking towards, like, both, this midterm season, but far beyond it, because
Yeah.
we should be ready, knowing that sabotage is a feature, not an
Yes.
accident, of what is
Yes.
expected in this coming midterm election. And so, as we're hearing the revved up stories about fraud in our government systems, and then that translating into quote unquote voter fraud, and the faces and the names that they're pointing at get blacker and blacker.
Hmm.
We should be ready about what are the sets of things that we're going to do. How are we going to act together in non-compliance to unjust laws? How are we
Yes.
going to act and be together in withholding our dollars from
Yes.
corporations who are allowing this foolishness to carry on? And so there are things that we can do, and so that's the thing I always want to remind people. God gave us free will, which means we have agency, and
Hmm.
we are to
Hmm.
use it
Hmm.
wisely. And
That's
so
right.
that means we always have choices. And part of an authoritarian regime's prerogative, the thing that they want to do, is to get us to a place where we think we don't have a choice, where we
That's
just
right.
have to do whatever. And it's
That's
like,
right.
no, if God gave me agency, surely
Come on.
ain't nobody about to take it from me. We have
And definitely not
choices.
you.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. So
Exactly.
we all should be using this time to
That's
start
good.
to build a muscle about
Mm.
how are we using our agency, how are we getting a relationship with one another, for all the things that are to probably soon come, you know?
Wow. Let me, I have only got girl, I could talk to you for hours. I got two more questions. I got two more, because I want to talk about what does it mean to be spiritually ready? Like, how does one spiritually prepare? So how do we
Yeah.
stay ready so we don't have to get ready? How do we stay ready in the spirit so that
Yes.
when it comes, so
Yes.
that when, because it's not really a matter of if, it is when it
It is when.
comes, the
It is
saints of
when.
God are ready, or they can at
Amen.
least hear God
Yes.
and move.
Yes. 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 I mean, folks should be read some Isaiah 58.
Come on, take them to the
Ready
stage.
yourself for what kind of things God is calling us to. What
That's
does it mean, to do justice in these times,
right. Amen.
and ask God to equip you with what you need to be courageous and prophetic and
Yes.
bold.
Yeah, Joshua.
It is okay. It's a
Hmm.
reason that the scriptures tell us over and over again, do not be afraid. And most certainly, what we have recognized about this regime is they want you to be afraid. So
That's
we
right.
already know some lies from the enemy are happening.
That's right.
Ready yourself, put on the full armor of God, ask God what it is that He's calling you to do in these times, and be open and available to what it is He calls you to. And then
That's good.
start to get connected to folks. Get connected to folks in your church, get connected to organizations in the area of where you are.
Great.
Um, Look up Faith in Us, which is national. There's
Mm.
churches and mosques and synagogues who are organizing probably in a place near you. We're already in
Hmm.
40 states. It's likely to spread into all of them. But get connected to folks to be able to, like, really ground yourself and be ready. And then I'll say, just concretely,
Yeah.
the there's all kinds of, like, trainings and things that you can do around, like, how to be a poll chaplain in these times, or
Oh, okay.
nonviolent direct action trainings and things like that. But also, as we get
We did that
closer to
together.
when, yes, we did. Yes, we
I know,
did.
girl.
And I will say, this is what I'll say about this, right? Is,
Hmm.
like, doing those trainings is very good. It starts to ready you about, like, the theory and the theoretical aspects of what does it mean.
Yes.
And when you get connected to folks and y'all have a real plan about how you're going to go and do it for real, there is something about the spiritual and physical, emotional practice of readying yourself for what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
There is something real about it's really hard to describe, but I just know, like, I went through a lot of the theoretical nonviolent direct action trainings, which I think were good for me to get in my head. But then I went through, what are we going to do as clergy together? I went through a training where the clergy got together and said, here is how we're going to go about this action at the airport. And
Yes.
you actually practice it, and you're in prayer, and you're talking to God. And it's like you talking to God as you moving past the security guard telling you, no, you can't come in here.
Oh,
Right.
yes.
And it's
Oh,
like,
yes.
oh,
Yes.
it is a
Oh,
different experience. And honestly, the presence of God was so clear, so prevalent, so thick. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a way in which you ready yourself, in connection with others who are also grounded and ready.
Mhm.
It's a beautiful thing that honestly I want other people to miss out on. So
Yeah.
don't let your fear block you from getting
Yeah.
involved in the work.
Yeah. Expect the Holy Spirit to show up
That's right.
within you and
That's
among
right.
you, right?
That's right.
That is powerful. Lastly, another way that we can get ready. Can you briefly talk about the midterms? Another practical way
Whew.
that folks can get
Yes.
ready. The
Yes.
midterms and
Yes.
political
Yes. Yes.
engagement, with
Yes.
our votes.
Yes. 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 So if you aren't already registered to vote, please do so.
Please
Make sure
do.
you are registered. Have
Yes.
a plan on going to vote. And if you are a state that allows for in-person early voting, I highly recommend you do it.
I'll be
We
there tomorrow.
already know, listen, and if you got primaries, vote in your primaries, participate in
Please.
your primaries, participate in your midterms. The thing that we already know has happened is that it's already been leaked by Reuters. We have
Mhm.
seen it. There is an executive order that is planned. We don't know when it'll be executed, but
Mm.
that would try to block mail in ballots. We
Yes,
know
that's
that mail in ballots, there are 8 states in this country that have universal mail in ballots. That's the majority of how people vote.
yes.
We already, I mean, even Operation Metro Surge, which we've been talking about today, the whole point and purpose of it was to try to get our voter rolls. Like, we
That's
have to
right. That's
stay
right. That's
clear
right.
that
Mhm.
all of this is actually about stealing our votes. We know right now, just last week in Ohio, 60 majority
Rated.
Black organizers were raided.
That's right.
And all of this is all about intimidation. It's because them Black voters, those Black organizers, were responsible for registering over
Oh
100,000 Black
yes.
people to go vote. You
Oh
know
yes.
that anything like that is a threat to the control and
Yes.
power of people who want to seize it and keep it. And
Mhm.
so this is all about, again, more and more spectacles of cruelty. We're going to keep seeing them. We're going to
That's
keep
right.
hearing all of these fraud narratives. We need to do our job of inoculating people against that. We need to do our job of making sure that the best proactive way in which we can defeat this is that we vote in numbers, in
That's right.
droves, make it super clear. Go and get your people, take them to the poll with you to go
That's
vote.
right.
And yeah, that, I mean, it is the best thing that we could do right now. It is like actually operating fully in our democracy, um,
Yeah.
and being clear that, like, they would not fight this hard to block us if
Thank you.
it didn't mean anything. Like, they
That's right.
treat our power to vote far better, they with more seriousness than we do. And
That's right.
so it's time we step up.
That's right. And we gonna keep saying that until we're blue in the face and until
Yeah,
y'all tired of it. They would
listen,
not fight this hard if
they
our
sure
vote didn't
wouldn't.
matter, if Black political power didn't matter.
They sure
So
do. Sure,
go
surely don't.
rock the boat, okay? I took it back to the
Yes.
90s with that one. But I took it back, okay? Because we need to
I
reclaim some
love
stuff.
it. I
Okay,
love it.
we need to reclaim some
Rock
things.
the boat.
Rock the boat for real, okay? Because we don't want to get rocked, okay?
It's also worth noting that, we need to, in the spirit of, like, spiritually grounding ourselves, readying ourselves for this season. I would tell us all right now, y'all could take this as
Mhm.
a prophetic gospel or what have you, but this season is not over in November.
Oh,
So ready yourself for the long haul. Folks don't get inaugurated or seated until January. We need to stay vigilant until folks are actually seated. When people are duly elected, when you start hearing folks say, "Oh, we're not going to seat somebody because we don't think that the system was da da da," no, 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 no. Count every single vote.
We've seen them
Count every single vote. Seat them folks and make a lot of noise if they say they're not going to. They only can do what we allow them to do.
That's right. That's right. And when they are seated, we have to hold them accountable.
Yes, ma'am.
For what they promised to do, y'all. So we have to stay vigilant, regardless, even once they get in, okay? Because we got to hold them to the promises that they made, okay?
Yeah.
And so, Minister JaNaé Bates, my sister comrade, Minister JaNaé Bates Imari, sorry. My sister comrade, oh my goodness. I am so grateful that you took a seat at the table.
I'm so glad I got to be here.
Of course. Before we go, can you talk to our sisters and tell them how they can follow your work, get connected to ISAIAH, wherever you want to share? Please let them know about what's coming up and how they can follow and be connected to the work.
Yes. You can certainly come and see us at ISAIAHmn.org. And you can sign up there to continue to get more information from the things that we're doing. Again, I mentioned Faith in Us. So you should please tap into Faith in Us. Faith in Us.
Is it .org or something?
It is .org. I'm almost certain.
Great.
And you should also just continue to stay connected through. You can connect with me on my social at JaNae Bates 7 on Instagram. So. Yeah.
We will put all of that in the show notes. And so thank you so much for joining us at the table, sister.
Thank you.
So grateful for your work and your witness. And to our sisters at the table, I want to thank y'all for taking a seat at the table with us. So let's keep the conversation going. Share your thoughts about this episode. Underground Railroad 2.0. Salt Melts Ice with Minister JaNaé Bates Imari. You can share your thoughts on Instagram, Threads, or Facebook at Truth Table, or email us your thoughts at asktruthstable@gmail.com. Black women, did y'all know that Truth Table has a Facebook group, a Facebook discipleship group? Well, now you do. So make sure you follow us on Truth Table, answer the entry questions, and invite your homegirls to join us as well. And don't forget to rate and review the show on iTunes and subscribe on your favorite podcast player. Truth Table has a Patreon account, so y'all can send your love offerings to patreon.com/truthstable or bless us at our PayPal, which is paypal.me/truthstable. Truth Table's audio producer is Joshua Heath. Our video producer is Daryl Bradford. And Truth Table's executive producers and hosts are Ekemini and Christina Evanson. We'll see you soon on the next Truth Table. Bye, y'all.